Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching me play Path of Exile. So, Path of Exile I've been playing pretty much non-stop for the past week. It's pretty much the only thing I've been doing. I didn't log in for an entire week of Destiny, it's incredible. It's been a while since that's happened, but I've just been playing nothing but POE. This is the first league that I've played where I've decided to try and make my own build, and I've hit a point where I'm stuck. So, a couple of things I want to do in this video. First off, I want to explain to you what my basic concept of the build is. Second off, I want to say my kind of few ideas of how I want to move it forward. And then my third is going to be asking for help for all you POE smart people who can, like, you know, autistically go in and actually fix it. I think my big stopgap at the moment is that I don't know a bunch of the stuff that the cluster jewels can do for me. I know a little bit just from mucking around in Path of Building, but I think I need way more damage, or I need way more survivability. One or the other. Preferably both. But, anyway. The basic concept of the build is it is essentially I am playing a Slayer, and I am doing a Slam build. So I am doing Ground Slam of, Ground Slam of Earth Choking. And I have auto-exerted a bunch of war cries. So I'm doing a bunch of war cries using auto-exertion. So I'm getting a bunch of exertion, and then that's adding a bunch of damage to my ground slam, and then I'm ground slamming and it's doing a big AoE and it's killing everything. That's the basic idea of the build. We also have Seismic Cry separate, that I do separately just because the actual buff from Seismic Cry is kind of useful. So that's the basic idea of it. And if we go into my passive tree, you can see here that I'm actually doing, because I'm doing a Slayer, I decided to do Frenzy stacking. I also realize the way I'm going to be talking while I do this is going to be incredibly esoteric to people who have never played PoE. For that, I apologize. This is mainly for people who already play PoE, I'll be honest, because I will be doing some more kind of basic stuff on PoE later. I have some videos I've been working on for ages in PoE. It's kind of my journey through, starting in Affliction and going all the way through. But for now, this is mainly, I need help with the build, therefore I need people who know what they're doing to actually see this. So there's going to be some eccentricities in here that only make sense to people who know PoE. But I'm doing Frenzy charge stacking. The reason I am doing that is because of the Slayer node that allows me to have my endurance charges equal to my maximum frenzy charges. And then we get +1 max frenzy charge as well. So they buffed endurance charges this league, so they give a bunch of survivability, and frenzy charges give me a bunch of damage, so I figure if I can get both of them, that sounds really good, right? Alright, back, sorry, I cut myself off there. I have a bunch of frenzy charges, and then I am running Relikesh's Impatience, so that I'm always at maximum frenzy endurance and power charges. With this, it gives me a fair amount of damage and a fair amount of survivability just off the bat, but it doesn't feel like enough, and I don't entirely know how to fix this. I'll go over everything I've got in my build, I'll go over the tree and then all of my items, and then we'll go over Path of Building and look at some stuff in there, I think. Because I think, generally speaking, it's going to be more useful to look through Path of Building than it is actually in-game. So we started off here as a Slayer, we've come down here, got these two nodes here, these are mainly here. The evasion rating and armor is really good, but this here is, I just need the dexterity, is the only reason I still have this point. We come down here for reduced mana cost of attacks and mana reservation. Same over here, this mana reservation allows me to get all of the war cries up and still have enough mana so that I can actually manually use my Seismic Cry. But I've got Ground Slam of Earth Shaking down to costing 6 life and nothing else. The way that I've done that is if we come over, hello, there we go. If we come over to here, we have this here, which is reduced mana cost of attacks. Attacks cost life instead of 10% of mana cost, and we have further reduction of mana cost of attacks, and then these nodes up here also reduce the cost of my skills further. And then we also have on my rings, we have non-channeling skills have negative cost to mana. We have that on both of my rings. So what that brings that down to is actually just a 6 life cost for this, so I don't have to worry about mana whatsoever. I've solved mana on my main skill at the very least. Also, Leap Slam, same deal, costs 1 life, does literally nothing, it's free essentially, I can Leap Slam forever. Leap Slam is mainly just there for movement. Honestly, I think I should probably swap it out for like Frostblink or whatever the hell it is, the one that's actually teleports you. because it's much better for bossing. But Leap Slam's red, so it really fits in, and I can use it on strength, you know what I mean? It's harder to justify chucking in a blue gem in here, if you know what I mean. But, moving on, the things we have elsewise as far as actual damage. We have down here, 3% increased damage per endurance, frenzy, or power charge. We have quite a few of those charges, so that's actually a fair amount of damage. We have this side here with all the frenzy charge nodes. So the chance to gain frenzy charges and endurance charges is pointless, but the actual extra damage we get from frenzy and the extra damage we get from endurance is quite nice. Up here for the extra frenzy charge, this is just a kind of basic jewel at the moment. I have plans for replacing this eventually, but for now it's just a kind of basic ass jewel. And this side of the tree we have up here with war cries. We want my war cry cooldown pretty low because I want to be war crying as often as possible, essentially. We have war cries have a minimum of 10 power, and then we've comboed that with this rage mastery, which means the war cries grant 1 rage per 5 enemy power up to 5. So this means that we're actually gaining rage by my auto exerted war cries, which is quite nice. It means that I'm pretty much always sitting at about between 25 and 40. Generally speaking, it's about 35 rage, I think, which is giving me a bunch of damage. We also have just the kind of generic rage things, get rage on kill. We have all of the axe nodes out here. These are just a bunch of axe damage because I'm using an axe. 30% increased damage while in Blood Stance is really good because I always have Blood Stance up, essentially. The area of effect in Sand Stance I guess is technically good too, but I never go out of Blood Stance. I'm just always in Blood Stance. Barbarism here. I took this for a particular reason, I think mainly for the max life. The max fire res is good, but don't know if that's the main reason I came there. And then finally we have this as well. Nearby enemies are intimidated when you have rage. So I am pretty much always having rage, so everything is usually intimidated. And there was one other one in here. There we go. The Warcry Mastery here, where my Leap Slam isn't exerted by my Warcries. So I'm not wasting the exertions on Warcries. I'll go, for the people who are watching this who have no idea about POE, what exertions are, by the way, is when you do war cries. See my seismic cry here, it's essentially a shout that gives you a buff. But you also see down the bottom there, it says exerts the next 6 melee attacks you perform. Exerted attacks have 50% more area of effect. So essentially you exert an X number of attacks depending on the war cry, and then that gives you an extra buff on the attack. And I have a bunch of these automated happening in the background all the time when I'm playing, which doesn't give me the base buff of the cry, but it does give me the exerted buff of the cry. So essentially I'm scaling all my damage off of that. So you see the 4 on here, it's because I have 4 attacks that exert. It goes down each time I use an attack. If I war cry, it'll go back up to 7. Just for anyone who doesn't know. And finally, we're running Resolute Technique. I don't know if I can get enough accuracy that I can drop this. Eventually, that might be nice, but I don't know if I can pull it off. Because I can't really get accuracy. I guess I can. There's some accuracy nodes down here I could potentially get to try and get my accuracy up. But yeah, this is essentially all we've got for the tree. We look at the Slayer archetype as well. We have the Leech nodes because Overleech is very, very important. Maximum recovery from Leech. Life Leech is not removed when unreserved life is filled. 10% reduced damage taken while leeching. And then we have Endless Hunger. Overkill damage is Leech's life. Increased attack speed while leeching. Cannot be stunned while leeching. You're unaffected by bleeding while leeching. And then we have Bane of Legends. 10% more damage if you're killed recently. Can't take reflected physical damage. That's quite nice just because it means I can always do that map mod. And 20% more damage with hits and ailments used against unique enemies. So we just do a bit more damage against uniques. Some obvious things that I've thought about doing is, one, we can do the really long path up here to get this extra frenzy node. I actually have this one up here anointed to give me an additional one. I'm not sure whether these 7 points are going to be worth. We're currently level 92. We're currently level 92, so I think it's 7 points up there, so it would take me to 99. That doesn't seem worth it. It does add a bunch of damage. And technically, I guess, survivability as well, because it's also giving me a +1 maximum endurance charge by getting it. So maybe it's worth it, but that's a potential future. I am currently not ailment immune. I am freeze immune, just because I am using Soul of the Brine King. So I've got myself freeze immune. That's something. I'm essentially stun immune because I'm pretty much always leeching. I'm essentially bleed immune because I'm always leeching, and that comes from the Slayer tree. But yeah, that's where we're sitting currently. So if I'm going to jump over to POB now, and I'll be with you in a second. Alright, so we're back and we should be in POB. So we'll go over all of my items and stuff in POB, just because that kind of works easier, because you can see everything a bit nicer in here. I think I imported everything correctly. This looks like the same tree. Yes. Tree is all correct. Skills are all correct. I think everything is correct. I will link this POB in the description, so you can look over it yourself and make any changes if you want to help me, of course. But looking at the actual stats we have now, I'll go through my configuration here as well. We have Brine King, Ryslathia, Ryslathia? I don't know how you fucking pronounce that. We helped Crichton just for the movement speed. I might get the extra point if I need it later. Like, I'm not like married to the 8% movement speed. I would like it because I don't get movement speed from a lot of other places other than my frenzy, so you know, it'd be nice. But going down, we always have power charges, frenzy, and endurance charges because we're using the boots. I have onslaught a lot of the time, but I'm going to leave it unticked for now just for testing purposes. Same as fortified. I have fortification on my main attack, so I am getting fortified most of the time. But I'd prefer to have my fizz hit and effective hit pool and stuff affected, assuming I don't have it, in case I get hit without it, you know. Rage, 25. That's relatively conservative. Generally speaking, I think I'm probably at 30 to 40. If we push this up to 40, what's that do to my damage? Yeah, it puts me up to like 5.3. But for safety's sake, let's just say we're doing 25 rage. I'm always leeching, just because literally all my damage leeches, so I do a lot of leeches. I pretty much always have flask active, because they're just used when full. I have killed recently. Let's say I've hit recently. That's all fine. I mean, Blood Stance, if I place a banner, it gives me an extra 165,000 damage. So the war banner is there just for extra damage against bosses, essentially. But let's go through the skills first, I think. So, on the weapon, we have Ground Slam of Earthshaking, Overexertion. So this is giving me the extra damage on all the exertions I have. We have Brutality, which gives me more physical damage, essentially. Fist of War. I have seen a couple of people using things other than Fist of War, but I like the damage that I get from it. So I am not married to Fist of War. I am quite happy to get rid of this if need be. But essentially we get a big ancestral thing where it does essentially double damage on every 2 seconds. Or 1.76 seconds, I guess, technically speaking. So that's just more damage. We have Fortify, so we're getting fortified every time we hit something. And then we have melee physical damage support. Obviously, some things I can do to get more damage is I can upgrade a bunch of these, like melee physical, I can get the awakened version, and whatever here has awakened versions. I know melee physical does, I assume brutality does. I'm not sure about the others, but obviously spending some div on awakened gems will give me some more damage, that's fine. We'll move down to kind of more generic things. We have Leap Slam with faster attacks, and then we have Flesh and Stone and Blood and Sand. So Blood and Sand puts me into the stance, either Blood Stance or Sand Stance. It's pretty much always Blood Stance. And then we have Flesh and Stone, which gives me the 20% more physical damage when things are close to me within the aura of my Blood Stance with Flesh and Stone. So that's quite nice. Moving on for some safety here, I have all attached to cast when damage taken. I have Blood Rage, I have Berserk, and I have Molten Shell, all cast when I take damage. I do probably need to add quality to the cast with damage, because I think quality actually adds... I think it lowers the damage threshold before these trigger, so that I think is just beneficial entirely. But the Molten Shell is there, hopefully that if I don't get one hit, I don't get a second hit that kills me immediately. Berserk is just more damage, and then Blood Rage obviously is Blood Rage, you get attack speed and damage and all sorts of things. and a bit more leeching as well, which is nice, but probably not entirely necessary, but I didn't really know what else to put here for a buff, so that's what we've got. Next, we have the helmet, where we have War Banner on here, as well as Herald of Purity. So Herald of Purity, I'm summoning my little minion men who go out and fight for me and pull some aggro away from me as well, which is quite nice. And then we have Seismic Cry with Urgent Orders, so I can spam my Seismic Cry pretty much whenever I want. Seismic Cry is pretty much 100% uptime because I am using it on Ben's helmet, which allows me, it's a unique that allows me to do 2 Seismic Cries. It doubles the amount of cooldowns for the cries attached to the helmet. And then finally, we have our Overexertion. So we have Auto Exertion with Rallying Cry, Intimidating Cry, Infernal Cry, and Battle Mage's Cry. And then we have Vulnerability on here, which is triggered by Battle Mage's Cry. So we're hexing everything with Vulnerability as well, lets them take a bit more damage, as well as giving us a chance to bleed, which is technically adding to our damage, not a whole lot. I'm not really focusing on the bleed. Maybe I should be, actually. There was a bit in the middle there where I kind of switched it to bleed rather than straight physical, but I switched out of it because I wasn't entirely liking it. We'll think about it. Anyway, that's essentially all I'm doing. So I'm doing a bunch of auto exertion on my chest, and then which is also doing vulnerability, so we're doing a hex as well, so it's making everything vulnerable to my physical damage. We then got an additional cry on my helmet. Seismic Cry is good because the buff is quite nice. War Banner for bosses, essentially, and tough rares, just so I can add some damage on top. Herald of Purity just helps more people doing damage. It takes aggro off me, it does more damage, it's good. We have Molten Shell in case we get in trouble. Berserker and Blood Rage, cast when damage taken. Ground Slam is my big damage. And then we have Leap Slam for movement, Flesh and Stone, and Blood and Sand for more damage, essentially. Moving on, we'll go to the actual items. So first we have this axe here. Maybe I will go through the items in-game actually, but we'll look at them here for now. This is my axe. We have a Val axe, so it has innate chance to maim on hit. I got attack speed fracture on it. It's a maximum attack speed fracture. I then slammed it with essences until I got it to this point. We're sitting at 868 DPS. I can definitely get this higher. The other 2 suffixes aside from attack speed are literally pointless on this thing. But it is a lot. When I made it, it was a huge upgrade because I think before my DPS was about 400. So I over doubled my DPS when I made this axe. But we have +1 level of socketed gems. This is probably not as good as percent damage, I would say. I probably want the percent damage on there as well. Then we have the flat damage from the essence. Then we have critical strike multiplier, completely pointless for me because I can't crit at the moment. Enemy stun threshold, don't really give a shit. And then we have crafted on, I crafted on the percent physical. So I'd probably want to roll the percent physical and then craft something else on there entirely. But for now, it's pretty good at 868 DPS. Going down to the helmet, we have Ben's helmet, so Echoes of Creation. So my Socket of Warcry skills have 1 cooldown use, 95% increased armor. Got some extra life on there as well. Every time I attack, I take 18% of my life as physical damage for each Warcry exerting the attack. I usually have, 5 Warcries up. So I'm going to be taking a lot of damage, but this is pre-mitigation damage. So it says 18% of life. It's 18% of life as physical damage before armor, before physical damage taken as, all that kind of stuff. So everything that you have that mitigates your physical damage will actually affect this. And because I am constantly leeching because of my ascendancy, this is essentially a non-issue. The only time this actually hurts me is if I'm attacking nothing. If I'm sitting there attacking nothing over and over again, I will kill myself with this. But I'm not slamming unless there's an enemy in front of me, and if there's an enemy in front of me, I'm leeching. If I'm leeching, I fully negate this effect, essentially. And my skills deal 10% more damage from each Warcry exerting them, so we're essentially doing 50% more damage. It is, when I swapped to this, it was a huge bump in my damage. I think I went from about 3 million up to about 5 million. It was kind of noticeable. Next up, we have my body armor. We have some Conquest Lamellar. Kind of hard to get the dexterity rating for this. I actually have to have the +24 strength and dex on the actual armor piece to be able to wear it. Just because it's very, very hard to wear otherwise. But we got Increased armor and evasion, max life, a very shitty max life roll, but I'm too scared to annul it. It terrifies me, to be honest, that annul. In any case, we got average fire, pretty shitty fire resistance, good lightning resistance, stun and block recovery, don't really care, because I'm pretty much stun immune. And then we have, as I said, the strength and dex have to be on there for me to actually be able to use the chest piece because the dex requirement is so high. But it is a shitload of armor and a shitload of evasion rating. We then did the basic kind of implicits, or the basic, what are they called? Eldritch implicits. So we have 11% of physical damage from hits is taken as fire damage, so that's giving me my phys hit going up a little bit. And just the 23% increased global physical damage. It seems fine. The other one I was thinking about is there's percent increased damage per frenzy charge. But I think to get, it's either not on chest pieces or it takes the place of the physical damage as fire. I can't remember. There was some reason why I didn't do it. I did use it further down. On these gloves, I think. There we go. So the gloves, 90% increased armor and evasion. We have flat accuracy, flat armor, flat evasion, lightning res, pretty damn good chaos res, and then I've just crafted on increased damage while leeching. That's just a very good mod for me because I am always leeching, so seems alright. We have Relikesh, not much to say about Relikesh, it's just giving me all my endurance, frenzy, and power charges. It kind of makes my build work at the moment. It's a huge upgrade just because of how much survivability and damage I get from those charges. Next up we have our amulet, Carnage Heart. I do want to update this at some point. I just need to be able to create an amulet that gives me, one, the amount of attributes I need. As I said, the dexterity is kind of tight. I think I'm like 3 or 4 points above the actual requirement I need, even with these plus all attributes on here and the plus, where is it? The plus dexterity here, so, you know. So I need all the attributes. I also need the increased damage while leeching. This is a max roll increased damage while leeching, which is quite nice, so we get an extra 40% damage while we're leeching. It also helps with our leech, it just does more life leech. So Carnage Heart is actually quite good as a stopgap, but eventually I think I do want to craft a amulet that will beat this. We then go on to my rings. The Anoint, whatever, that's just blight stuff, but we have 23% cast resistance, 45 life, 21 mana, 10% wall resist, 44 cold, 14 chaos, and as I said before, we have the non-channeling skills take less mana. This is required just so that I can keep using my attacks without having a mana cost, because getting rid of the mana cost entirely makes things run so much smoother. I think I have exactly enough. This -6 and -7 on each of these rings actually makes it so that I have literally 0. Like, it actually hits that limit on the dot. We can go to the other ring. We have 15 fire and lightning. We have 18 rarity, 45 fire, 47 cold, 25 chaos. Me and my minions take 36 reduced reflected damage. I hate this so much. This ring annoys me because that minions take 30% reduced reflected phys damage. That came from a Hunter Exalted Orb. So that cost me like, I don't know, a div and a half. And it rolled the one thing from the Hunter that I didn't need. I needed any other of those. Okay, what is a suffix? No prefix. I needed any other prefix on there and it would have been fine. And as I said, we still need that minus mana. So this ring is... It's probably one of the best things I've crafted. Like, ever. But at the same time... It annoys me because it's not what I wanted from my Hunter Exalt Orb. As for the belt, we are using Arn's Anguish. So we get Brutal Charges. This has some pretty cool interactions with Relikesh, because generally speaking, when you're using Arn's Anguish, all of your endurance charges get transformed into Brutal Charges. But because of Relikesh, it still counts as me having maximum endurance charges, even though I technically don't. They turn into Brutal Charges. So as I'm getting attacks on things, my chance to get endurance charges turn into brutal charges instead, which just give me a chance at triple damage, which is quite nice. Triple damage is good. What can I say? As for my flasks, we have Writhing Jar. The reason we have Writhing Jar is because it sends out 2 worms. I kill the worms, that starts my life leech process. I was thinking about maybe swapping this out for a regular healing flask, but really, I feel like most of my survivability comes from my leech. So I want something to be able to leech off immediately, is the thing. What this is, by the way, I assume most people know what Writhing Jar is, but it gives you a bit of health and a bit of mana, but it also shoots out 2 little enemies that don't do any damage to you. They're 2 little worms that just sit there. I can kill those worms, which gives me life leech. That's the reason that I like having it. We have an Amethyst Flask. While this is active, it actually caps my chaos resistance, which is quite nice. But we have, on this, we have used when charges rate full, and we also have regenerates 3% of my life per second during the effect. We then have Granite Flask, so that gives me more armor. Once again, used when charges are full, and we just have rarity on that. Then we have the Rotgut Quicksilver Flask. I don't think this is actually working for me. This is supposed to give me Onslaught every time I consume Frenzy Charges, but I don't think it's actually consuming the Frenzy Charges I have. Because my minimum Frenzy Charges is set to a certain amount, and Ralikesh doesn't actually give you charges, it just counts as if you have them. So I don't actually think the Rock Gut is being beneficial to me, so I might just switch back to my other Quicksilver Flask. But this is essentially just a Quicksilver Flask, and theoretically it gives me things, but it seems to just, even in POB, right, it seems to just give me the extra speed. It doesn't actually seem to give me Onslaught. Which is unfortunate, because if this was working the way I wanted it to with Ralikesh, it would essentially just always give you Onslaught. It would be infinite Onslaught with Rock Guard, but apparently it's not working the way I expect it to, therefore I should probably just switch it back to a regular Quicksilver. It's fine. Then finally we have a Jade Flask, which is just upping my evasion rating. And same thing here, I just chucked on rarity, because the main reason I did that for these two is just because I found out that rarity is where you're getting a lot of your gold from. If you don't have rarity, you don't get the gold drops, so I really want that. So that is everything, I think. We look through at the POB numbers. We look at my physical damage. I have 345% increased and 135% more. I guess ideally we probably want more. We want an increase to more. Or more. I don't know how to say this without sounding retarded. But we need more damage in the more damage, I guess. I don't know. The problem I'm having right now is if you actually look at my stats here. Effective hit pool is 70. This is worst case scenario because this is when we have no flasks up. So I guess technically, like, you can put some flasks on, because a lot of the time I have all of these active. Just because if I'm hitting things, I'm getting the flask recovery, and they pretty much last long enough that I have them 100% uptime. But not quite, so we're going to assume I don't have any of them. So that's effective hit pool of 70, which is a meaningless number. 12.4 fizz hit. That doesn't seem like a lot. I don't know if it is or not. We have about 30k on Elemental, 10k Chaos. That 10k actually goes up quite significantly when I've got my flask up, but ignore it for now. 3100 life. That is a very low life amount. I cut a bunch of my life out to get these mana reservations so that I could get all of my war cries going at the same time. Yeah, it feels like too much, like not enough life, so maybe I need more life somewhere. I think I was rocking about 3700 before I went and got these extra mana reservations. But 31 is pretty low, so maybe that's where my my max hit has gone down so much, but I don't know, man. Mana is essentially not an issue. We have 58 unreserved, but the most I ever spend is, I think, 40? Maybe not even that, it might be like 30 something, and that's for the Warcry. So that's not really an issue. I also leech like 129 mana per hit, so as long as I'm hitting something, I always have mana. Mana is essentially solved in the build. The energy shield, I think, is just coming from Ralikesh? Yes, it's armor energy shield. So the armor is just coming from, the energy shield is just coming from Ralikesh. 25 rage. I pretty much always have at least 25 rage. I'm thinking it's probably closer to 30 or 35 rage, honestly. But for being conservative, I want to underestimate rather than overestimate in POB. So 25 rage. Moving down, evasion, we have about 9,000 evasion, so it's about 50% evade chance. We have just under 20,000 armor, so it's 90% physical reduction. And then we are 77, 76, 76 for resistances, and 75 when we're actually running the flask on chaos resist. Movement speed goes up to about double speed when I have my Quicksilver flask active. So we have full DPS of about 4.6 million. In actual fact, it seems like I probably am higher than that because I usually have more rage. I think it's probably more around 5 million is probably more accurate. But a couple of things I need to know. One, is this enough damage? I don't think so. I think I need more damage. I do a lot. I think this is the most damage I've ever done, I will say. It's a lot of damage. But it doesn't feel like anywhere close to enough damage. And secondly, the survivability just, it doesn't feel safe. Like, I can blast 16s, no problem. I've only completed 117. I've tried 3, died twice. Finished 1. So, the survivability doesn't seem there for 17s. I've yet to try Uber Eater. So I haven't done Maven and I haven't done Uber Eater. I've done the other Void Stones. And I've done a tier 17. I killed Uber Katarina or whatever. So, I don't know, I just need help. I think the main thing I need to do is either path down here to this cluster jewel and figure something out with cluster jewels, or path up here for this cluster jewel, same thing. Well, that's not good. Actually, I don't need that. No, I don't need that. So I'm thinking cluster jewels are probably going to save me, but I don't understand cluster jewels enough, I think is my problem. I've looked through a bunch and tried to figure some stuff out. The other thing I really want to look into is, I will go back in-game for this, but... Alright, we're back. So, I'm tempted to do some stuff with Storm Shroud. I bought myself a Storm Shroud, which gives me a chance to avoid being shocked, applies to all elemental ailments, and then we have some weird things here, like this here, this small cluster, gives me insulated, 30% chance to avoid being shocked. Maybe some other things I can do with this, such that I can get ailment immune, because I do notice being chilled all the time, and I have a feeling that shocked and ignited are probably killing me occasionally. And I'm just not figuring. It's those times when I die and I don't know what killed me. I think probably has something to do with elemental ailments that I'm just missing. So maybe I want to do some stuff with this as well, but I haven't quite figured out how to get this going. Like, if we actually look at my passive tree, we have this spot here, which I could do for the gem, the Storm Shroud gem, but then actually getting the ailment immunity is near impossible, I think. Like, we have this part in the tree up here. It's like a lot of points to get to. What are, like, minimum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, it's a minimum of 8 points to get, like, all of these things, which I think would make me everything except shock immune. Right? Because we're looking at 10, 20, 40, 10, 30. So it's 50 per element. Which means if I get everything, the shock will apply to the freeze, chill, and ignite. So yeah, if I get this whole tree, it makes me ignite immune, freeze immune, and chill immune, and like 80% shock immune. With having the small cluster jewel as well, the insulated with the 30% chance. So I think. Like, there might be something there that gets me more survivable, but like occasionally I just die in tier 16s. It's a thing that's happening to me occasionally. I'll be going fine, killing everything, not having to worry about a damn thing for the most part, and then suddenly I'll go against it like a boss harbinger or something, and I'll just get hit with an ailment. I think it's shock. I think I'm getting hit by shock and then just getting nuked out of existence. So there's something about my survivability that's just not there. My damage for now seems fine. But I feel like either I want way more survivability so that I don't get nuked, and it's also noticeable in boss fights as well. I guess it's the downside of armor, right? Is that you can take a lot of little hits very easily, but taking big hits is harder. Like the tier 17 fight with Katarina. Phew, shit was hard. I had to dodge everything. I don't want to have to play good, you know what I mean? I either want to be able to just sit there and take the damage, or I want to do so much damage that I just nuke the boss out of existence one way or the other, you know what I mean? And it's possible that my plan here is just not going to work, you know? Like, maybe this frenzy charge stacking just isn't the way to go, but I'm open to suggestions. Because the main thing I like about this build, by the way, is the doubling up on frenzy charges with endurance charges and overleech. Those are the things I enjoy about the build. Like, I'm even potentially happy to swap off Slam and go to a different build. But I do enjoy the Warcries I've got going at the moment, you know? Like, the Warcry Exertion is really, really cool as well. Just with, like, this helmet here is cool. It just gives you 50% extra damage, essentially, on all my attacks, which is just great. But yeah, I am open to suggestions. Obviously, there's some obvious things here, like this axe here. The global critical strike multiplier is doing literally nothing because I have Resolute Technique, so that's doing literally nothing. And the enemy stun threshold is like a pointless stat for the most part. +1 level socketed gems is probably doing less than another prefix I could get on here, if I were to guess. Because I can probably get the, if I can roll the increased damage, rather than having that crafted, and then craft something else on here. Like, out of interest. Oh, I can't ground slam when it's there. Is there anything else in here that's, like, particularly amazing? Fizz damage, chance to impale. Like, that seems really good. Fizz damage, chance to bleed is probably pretty good as well. Like, if we can roll the, like, a T1 actual increased fizz damage rather than having the crafted one, and then I can craft on one of these. Or even actually slam it with a Veiled Orb and actually unveil it would be even better, but it's probably far more expensive and not really worth it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm open to suggestions. Help me. Please. I'm in the need of some autism, because I think I've hit the wall that my knowledge is at, you know what I mean? I can't quite figure out how to add more damage or more survivability. Like, even, we look at this, I'm only level 92, right? So I do have like another 8 points available if I just, you know, played some safer maps and grinded. But the thing is, like, I don't even know, like, I've played around in POB a bunch with like a level 100 of this, and I still can't figure out how I get that much more damage. Like, I don't know. I just need help. And my assumption is the answer is going to be in cluster jewels. That's my assumption, is that there's something in cluster jewels. I did play around with them a bit. I tried. I don't know all the things that you can get on cluster jewels. Even looking and staring at the wiki for like an hour, I still couldn't figure it out, you know? So I am open to suggestions. Anyway, if you enjoyed the video, this is a very rambly video, I must say. I'll try and cut it down a bit in post, but I did sit here rambling and going over everything I was doing. But if you enjoy the video, please leave a like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. And if you do decide to help me and give me any kind of suggestions for either survivability or damage, I'll take either. Preferably both, to be honest. But it would be very much appreciated. I will say though, actually, now that I understand the game a bit better, this is the 3rd league I've played, and now that I understand the game a bit better, actually crafting my own build was very, very fun, I will say that. But I think I've hit the wall on how far I can go with my current knowledge, so yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, guys.